Momentum is building. Now let's see what the charts actually confirm. This is Bitcoin on Point, where I give you the only news that matters and the cleanest technical analysis to trade the best asset in the world, Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is not breaking down, but it's also not breaking out. In fact, we are evidently seeing a strong compression zone, and this is one of those moments where the next move matters most. Key trend lines are holding as structural support. What is likely to come next? And this move will be critical. So before we go deeper into the charts, let's zoom out, because whilst price is compressing, real-world Bitcoin and crypto adoption continues to accelerate. Just in, Metaplanet reports $27.1 million in Bitcoin income generation revenues for Q4. This is huge, and it's very important because it isn't just speculation. This is Bitcoin being used as a productive treasury asset. Companies are generating revenue directly from Bitcoin, and it's a sign of maturation, not excess. Now, Europe is quietly building on-chain rails because Ripple makes a major move. Ripple is embedding into Europe's banking rails via the TAS network gateway, positioning itself as a key bridge between traditional finance and blockchain settlement. So whether it's Bitcoin or XRP or broader crypto infrastructure, it's evident to see that this expansion continues inside a much larger global trend. And blockchains are being integrated, not sidelined. Huge. Now, Bitcoin mining has just got a political defense barrier because Senator Cynthia Lummis has defended in Congress the right to use energy for Bitcoin mining. So mining isn't being framed or fixated as waste. It's being framed as energy innovation and grid flexibility. It's a long-term regulatory tailwind, especially during moments of market uncertainty. Now, keep this macro context in mind as we move back to the price. And on the monthly time frame, it's very evident to see that Bitcoin has been adhering to this trend line since 2023. So this isn't a weak hold or anything out of the blue. In fact, this is a technically clean reaction. If price starts expanding higher from here, just like it has done on the previous two occasions since 2023, then a 58% move and structure is likely to push and resort back to the all-time highs. Again, every time Bitcoin's come back down to this trend line since it was created, and the exact date that it was created was back in sort of September 2023. And again, as you can see, every time the trend line's been hit, we've placed a new all-time high. Will this time be any different? Now, this isn't a prediction. This is what the trend permits if continuation confirms. Now, on the 2-week time frame, Bitcoin is sitting at a very, very important level. At this moment in time, we have a critical support line that sits roughly at $80,000. And if we look at a similar setup back to 2021, which was a bear market setup, when this trend line was broken and we initially saw Bitcoin break down, that was the confirmational sign of the bear market. However, fast forward to 2025, although we have a similar replication of setup, at this moment in time, Bitcoin is holding this trend line as support. So this is a zone that cannot break cleanly without changing the broader market narrative. And as long as this support line holds, higher time frame structure remains constructive. The market stays in continuation mode. So as long as support holds, we have no confirmational breakdown of support, which means we are not in a similar setup to 2021, although it may look like it. However, if Bitcoin does lose this level and start sweeping below sort of $80,000 and hitting its head on that, then risk does increase meaningfully. This timeline is a line in the sand for Bitcoin. Now, on the daily chart, Bitcoin is actually accumulating. We are caught in a massive range of resistance at $93,000 and a key demand zone back down at $84,000 to $83,000. At this moment in time, there is sideways accumulation between a level of resistance and support. I think $90,000 is the upper lower time frame supply, which we'll look at in a second. And we also have sort of $86,000 to $84,000 as support below. So price is compressing. It's not necessarily trending. Liquidity, is being absorbed here. It's not necessarily being chased. You could see that evidently through the candles where Bitcoin just hasn't made its mind up on which way it wants to break yet. So right now the daily is asking for confirmation, not for conviction. We simply await for a decision in regards to either breaking back down to support or pushing back up to 95k supply. Now, on the 4-hour time frame, Bitcoin is currently respecting this trend line that's been holding ever since the 1st of December. We ran up into supply, came back down into this trend line, and you can see that multiple occasions we are bouncing off of this trend line as support. So is there a likelihood of a run up now into supply before getting another correction back down to support? Or are we in favor here of actually reclaiming this resistance? And this is where the bulls need to step in, guys. Once Bitcoin does start pushing through sort of $93,000 to $94,000 and breaking through the supply and the highs from the 12th of December, this is where the bulls could really step in and Bitcoin could start reacting really positively after bouncing off of the respected trend line on the 4-hour time frame. So from here, technically speaking, just after touching the respected trend line, we should be looking for a move into supply. So somewhere between $90,000 to $92,000 to $93,000. And what happens at that supply zone, if Bitcoin does get that rally up into it, will actually, well, it will tell us whether confirmation or continuation to the upside is real or whether price needs to work more and resort back to the trend line once again. So everything hangs in the balance on the 4-hour time frame that's respecting this said trend line. Now on the 2-hour time frame, there's a very clear picture. Price has attempted breakouts on several occasions at supply, and these have been fake outs or fake breakouts from this exact range. Now below there is a lot of sell side liquidity, and this is also where at the moment during this consolidation that Bitcoin is actually seeing some relief. So when it does come back and tap into these liquidity pockets after running into supply, this is where we're getting that sort of consolidation accumulation where we're literally just range bound in this consolidation phase. So at this moment, again, Bitcoin is still waiting to make up its mind. It has tapped into this supply again. So is it likely that we actually stoop lower here, sweep even more sell side liquidity? Sorry, this isn't buy side. This is sell side liquidity. Sweep lower and into the bullish order block, come back down to fill in the lows from early to mid-November, roughly at sort of 84,000, and then make some sort of V-shaped recovery, pushing back into the fake outs and supply range at 90K. So we do have pools of sell side liquidity below and a clearly defined bullish order block underneath waiting. A sweep into this zone followed by a strong reaction would structurally be healthy and not necessarily bearish. So when we stack everything together for Bitcoin, macro is generating real revenue and there is infrastructure expansion plus Bitcoin mining defense. We also have on the monthly time frame a key trend line that Bitcoin has been respecting since 2023. On the 2-week time frame, there's a very important defense line sitting at $80,000 that Bitcoin must hold to reflect or negate a bear market setup. For now, the bulls do remain in control above support. The daily time frame is evidently showing a level of compression between supply at 93K and daily support at $84,000 with accumulation and sideways action within this range. The 4-hour time frame is adhering and respecting a lower time frame trend line with a look to pushing back up to Bitcoin supply at $90,000, and the 2-hour is a very clear picture to show the fake breakouts and where Bitcoin is also sweeping the sell side liquidity with a massive bullish order block below waiting if any further pain continues. So this is not the breakout yet. Let's be honest, this is still in the preparation phase. So now that we have Bitcoin wrapped up, let's take a look at Ethereum. Now we're analyzing the weekly time frame where ETH is respecting a higher low trend line. So even if we do see ETH pull back to the lower sort of $2,800 to $2,700, this defense line could come into play and we are likely to see some relief if it does get tapped once again. But failing this, what are the other scenarios? Well, we do also have a massive weekly support block below, and that sits from the lows back in June of 2025, roughly at 2.2 to 2.3K. So regardless if price holds the trend line or not, ETH still has a massive defense guard waiting below that could act as a strong area of support. Now, zooming into ETH on the daily, there is a massive supply zone that does need to be broken here, and this does sit at $3,600. But it's ever so clear again to see that this trend line here for ETH has been adhering ever since late November. So every time ETH has come back down to this trend line, it has seen strong reactions. And if we are to touch on this trend line once more, the likelihood of pushing back into supply will mark the ultimate test. If we do behave very similarly to the previous reactions from this trend line, then running back up to sort of 3.5K will be the ultimate testament. breaking through this zone, then ETH is looking to flip it into support and start pushing on towards 4K and the previous highs from back in late October over here on the left. But failing that, if we do run back into supply, ETH could see a strong push back down to its critical support, which it's been holding ever since these lows and wick formations in November, which do sit at $2,700. And this is an area that most occasions that ETH has been back down here, it has seen strong reliefs. So although there is supply above, we do have support on the weekly with a major weekly support and liquidity below that. But failing that, again, zooming in a little more, there is still defense lines in front of the weekly that could act as a major catalyst for ETH if all goes to plan and supply on the daily is broken. So this is a critical decision point. If ETH continues respecting the trend line and pushes into the daily supply zone, we'll get cleaner confirmation, basically. And, you know, it will be evident to see at that point whether acceptance or rejection comes first. So ETH is not breaking, but it's validating its structure. Now, our final thoughts, what I would like to take away from this video, just let the confirmation do the work. This isn't a market to rush. It's evident that Bitcoin is still making its mind up. It's back down at critical support. You know, the lower time frames have got fake outs and breakouts all over the place, and Ethereum is still making its mind up on what it wants to do next. And with these macro tailwinds, which are happening during this cycle, I would just suggest to let the structure do its thing. Let the market show direction, let the structure resolve, and stay patient whilst the setup completes. Now, if you want to support the channel, the links below are there for you. You can trade on the platform we use, get fee discounts and bonuses. It's completely optional, but it really helps the channel grow. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next update.